Welcome to Accountable, where your business is our business. Hosted by David R. Peters.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Accountable, the podcast for CFOs by a CFO. Hey, my name's Dave. Thank you so much for being here this week. You know, one of the things that I think a lot of us are struggling with now, I think just kind of post-pandemic, but just kind of in general, I think that our workplace has really changed. And I think for a lot of us, I think that we are struggling to try to figure out how exactly our workplace has changed and what does that mean for us? If you're somebody who is looking to step up in a leadership role, what does that mean? What do we need to do to really sort of embrace this kind of in this new working world that we're in? If you're already in a leadership role, I think you're also trying to figure out how can we build a workplace culture when we seemingly have just a very different workspace that we're in right now. We got people working remotely. We got people that are still coming to the office. We got some people saying that, hey, we need to get everybody back into the office. And then we got other folks that are saying, well, maybe not so much, So I think that it's just kind of a tricky time to be a leader. And so I think that, kind of with that in mind, I think that we have a great guest today. So with us today, who's going to talk to us about leadership and about building good workplace culture, we have Joey Havens. Joey is a CPA. He is an author. He is, and probably most impressive, at least to me, just because I have to tell you, Joey, this doesn't really happen too much, I don't think, anymore. You've been working at Horn for, I believe it's 39 years. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is in and of itself, I think, is pretty impressive as well. So anyway, Joey Havens, thank you so much for being on Accountable.
Well, thank you, Dave. I'm really excited to be here with you today, and what a timely subject.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really, I think your book, I think really comes at kind of an interesting time, for a lot of folks. I think a lot of folks that are picking up your book now, that they are sitting there thinking to themselves, wow, what a topic, because we are in kind of the midst of change. How would you say that the workplace has changed? I mean, I think for a lot of us, I think we're struggling to put our finger on it.
Yeah, what I share with people is we are in an exponential world.
Right.
And what that means is we're going to see exponential change faster than we've ever seen it before. We saw it in 2020 with COVID. That kind of put the accelerator to the floorboard. And now with AI and everything else that's going on, we are in the midst of an exponential world, and it's not going to slow down. If you think about your phone, are we going to go from 5G back to 3G?
Yeah.
Are we going to 7G? Same thing in our lives. We are in an exponential world.
And I think that that's interesting that you say that, because I think a lot of us, for a lot of us right now, I hear a lot of talk on the news, and from a lot of the folks that I talk to, probably from a lot of the folks that you talk to as well, they talk about getting back to where we were. And I'm not sure that that really makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, to your point, I mean, do we really necessarily go backwards?
No, we're not. And, that's part of one of the weaknesses. I think it's Albert, trying to think of man's name. Anyway, he says the weakest thing about humans is their ability to understand exponential change and exponential growth. And that's really what we're faced with. We're not going back. It's only going to speed up. And there's a book out called Tomorrow Mind, which came out in 2023. And they do a great job of comparing the Industrial Revolution, which was 40% of jobs in 40 years. Well, we're looking at 80% of jobs changing drastically, new jobs created, other jobs going away in 10 years. So 4 times as fast as the human race has ever seen before.
Which I mean, I think that that really kind of puts in perspective. I think kind of what you're talking about there. I mean, it's just the rate of change is just nothing like we've ever really experienced. So tell me then, because I think that this really creates some issues. Like I said just a few minutes ago, I think this really creates some issues and maybe some obstacles, maybe on some level for leaders. What would you
Opportunities. It creates
go ahead?
opportunities.
What'd you say?
Opportunities. It creates,
Opportunities.
yes, tremendous opportunities.
Well, talk to me about that. What sort of opportunities do we see now that maybe that we didn't have before?
Well, just think about it. If every business is changing, every business, their business model, how they work, how they deliver, all of that's changing. Who's in better position to lead that? Whether it's project management, whether it's consulting, reorganization, people, leadership. We have such an abundant future in front of us that it's all opportunities.
So, I mean, what would you say then to somebody who is really trying to step into a leadership role? I mean, I mean, it seems just so different now. And I think that that's maybe why people are struggling so much. Has leadership changed? What do we really need out of our leaders now?
Yeah, I think the thing that has changed, if we really talk about the CPA profession, is that we built our profession on the legacy of having all the answers and being technically, our leaders got promoted up because you were technically the best.
Right.
Not necessarily the best leader, you just kind of got moved up because technically you were that strong. And today, leadership is about elevating those around you. It's about helping others see their full potential. And it is away from the control type of entities that we have built to more of a trust relationship with your people.
So it's more about relationship building necessarily than technical expertise.
I would say that an organization has no chance in the future to really be relevant if their leaders do not live the values that they talk about and do not connect with their teams. Because let's think back to the exponential world. It takes resiliency. You only have resiliency in a team if they have a strong sense of belonging. They only have a strong sense of belonging if they're connected to leadership. They'll only connect to leadership if leadership lives and demonstrates the values.
Does that get in the way though of just getting things done? Because I mean, I gotta tell you, the thing is like, especially about the accounting profession. I mean, we got deadlines like you would not even believe, right? I mean, I don't know that any profession has deadlines like we have deadlines, Joey.
Every profession has deadlines. We have just made a living at being very poor project managers
Yeah,
using deadlines. We have
yeah.
not focused on a client's experience. In other words, think about it. We run up to that deadline over and over again. So deadlines have really been an anchor for leadership in our profession because we've relied on them to push work into a funnel, and then we just have to get it done, and we overwork people, and it's really poor project management, and um, that's not a strong skill set in our profession.
I think that's interesting that you say that because I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I would necessarily, or maybe some of our listeners here would necessarily automatically think about that. I think a lot of us, we look at the accounting profession and we say, my goodness, what a group of organized people. They must be pretty good at kind of organizing their work and pushing through. I mean, I think so. It's interesting that you say that.
Well, think about it. Our business model's built on we make more money the longer we take to do something,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah,
So
true.
we don't have the incentives for our people to be creative and innovative we're telling them we're going to value based what you put on a timesheet. And so the business model's broken for the kind of world we're in today.
I think that that's fair too, because I mean, I think a lot of we take this sort of odd pride. I don't know another word for it. Odd pride in like, hey, I worked 100 hours last week. You only worked 95.
Yes, I call it the badge of honor. It's another anchor in our profession because we wear that badge of I worked harder than you did, or I worked so many hours. I had 2,500 chargeable hours. That's our badge of honor. And look, all the young talent, all our stars are looking at our profession and saying, you know what? I don't want that.
Right. And I think to your point, I mean, we are seeing pretty significant issues in terms of we call it the pipeline.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think you're right though. It does go a little bit deeper of just like people not liking accounting. I mean, I think it probably goes deeper than that.
Yeah, it's what I like to tell people is that we've got to create a better story and we've got to tell a better story. What an amazing profession, what an amazing career. Again, one that is positioned to grab this abundance from project management to everything that's changing in front of us. All of this abundance is in front of us. And we've really got to look at our people and understand that's where the magic is. That's where you're going to get things done.
Right. Talk to me because in your book you talk well, and in some of the things that are on your website and things like that, you talk about some pretty interesting concept, and I want to talk about at least a few of these here. Um, what is your definition of bold transparency, and how can leaders best show their heart? That's something that you talk about a little bit. Talk to me about what that means, and what do those ideas mean?
Well, I think at the root of both of those, it's trusting in the inherent good in people. In other words, if you're going to trust people, leaders have to be vulnerable and being intentional to connect with people. In other words, really seeing them, understand who they are as a person, what's going on in their personal lives, and what are their aspirations? What do they want in their career? Uh, Giving them autonomy to have some influence on when, where, and how they work. And you mentioned that in some of your opening comments around flexibility and
Yeah.
where's that going. And I hope we dive into that. But leaders in very intentional ways demonstrating how they're connecting and actually living the values, actually living the purpose of the organization. That's what brings meaning. People understanding why their role is important. And then the transparency, the part I talk about, bold transparency, is two big areas. One is we're all human. Leaders are going to make mistakes. When you're in an exponential world, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And owning that and then being very open about owning that and being bold. And the second piece of that in transparency is as you peel the onion back on your culture, and you're going to have some strengths, but we all are going to have some things in our culture that aren't so good. They stink. And owning that, being transparent about it, and then transparent about what are you going to do about it, and then being transparent to report, did we make any progress? And if we didn't make progress, what are we going to do to change that?
So I think that this idea of a vulnerable leader is kind of an interesting one from the standpoint that I'm not really sure that we as a society necessarily embrace vulnerable leaders. I mean, I think when I in a world full of leaders that tend to be kind of outspoken, I would say. I mean, who do the books get written about? I mean, most of the times it's these very sort of outspoken leaders that that are out there. Um, and when I see, I mean, I saw it today when I was eating my lunch. I mean, there's superhero movies and things like that. Yeah, do we celebrate vulnerability? I mean, it just seems like something that we have trouble with.
You know, I think maybe you're reading the wrong books.
Yeah. Yeah.
I, I think in politics and what we see in the media, that's true. But people, our team members embrace leaders that are vulnerable. They embrace leaders that they see are human and that are trying to do those things. And I think about some of the best authors out there like Simon Sinek, John Gordon, Patrick Lencioni. They all write and promote that vulnerability. And our profession has not been one that has really seen a lot of that because of, again, we got in leadership roles from collecting stars or medals, from the hours worked to I'm the best tax guy, I'm the best CFO.
Right.
That's how we got into leadership roles.
And I think that that is, probably. I think that that's very well said. It's, sometimes the stuff that maybe gets glorified in the media is maybe not necessarily the most effective, right? I mean, it's,
Exactly.
yeah, and I think that that's probably accurate. But I want to touch on something else that you mentioned here because you talked about kind of connecting staff to kind of the why of the organization, and I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that. And I was hoping that maybe you could just kind of talk about that that idea. How can you better connect staff to kind of the why of the organization or the purpose of the organization and where the organization is headed?
Yeah, I think that question is so relevant. But there's two really big surveys out that show that less than 50% of Americans today are finding real meaning and purpose. And then there's a smaller one that zeroes in on the accounting profession, which says about 65% of our people would consider leaving the profession or going to another job. So it's a big, big question. It starts with communicating, why their role is important. Why is the work that you're doing important? How does it relate to the purpose and the mission of the organization? And really being diligent in providing clarity and repetition. People don't hear something the first time you say it. And we assume that in our profession a lot. Hey, I sent an email. I said it in our firm wide podcast. You've got to say it 6 or 7 or 8 times, including in onboarding. Yet, going through this over and over again. So team members have to see leaders living it out. You're going to hear me say that over and over again because we're in a fishbowl. A leader is in a fishbowl. I talk about this in the book. And the reason I say that is because the people that you're leading, you're in a fishbowl and they're not listening to just what you say. They're watching where you swim and how you swim. Are you
Yeah.
swimming the way you tell them to swim? And I like telling people as you go up in leadership, you get a bigger fishbowl, but it's not because you're a bigger fish. It's because there's more people standing around the fishbowl so they can see. And so that kind of gives you the concept, man, my voice, my actions carry. It's like the butterfly wings effect. I mean, it has ripples and it goes everywhere. And so the other thing that I think is really important in that, Dave, is a leader connecting their own personal purpose to the company's purpose. Like I share with our team, I feel like my purpose in life is to help people see and realize their full potential. And
Right.
that ties to our mission of creating value and making a difference as a firm.
Now, how does workplace flexibility kind of fit into that? Because I mean, it's a, I mean, you're not seeing these people every day. I mean, at least not physically every day, or at least I don't think you are. I mean, I think a lot of us, we're working from home, and so I mean, is it harder now to get people to connect to that? Why?
Yes, obviously, hybrid schedules, remote work, it's a whole new challenge. You have to learn how to manage people differently. In 2014, I shared with our firm that flexibility is the number one challenge. Number one. And it's the number one challenge for our profession today. Whether you're a CFO in a private company, public company, or whether you're working in public accounting, flexibility is the number one challenge. And you talked about this in your opening comments. People are already saying, "Hey, we're bringing our people back. We're going to be here 5 days a week from 8 to 5. Everybody's going to be here." And I would caution you to be careful about who shows up and who doesn't, and who shows up but puts their resume out there in an organization where they feel like they're trusted more to have some influence about when, where, and how they work.
I think that's interesting. I think that either consciously or unconsciously, I'm not really sure which, but I think that we have probably some preferences, right? I mean, if I'm in the office and I sort of value that, as a leader, I sort of look at the staff members that show up into the office. I look at them as being, okay, these are my stars.
Right. Yeah, it's got to be present to win. And in an exponential world, in a world where hybrid schedules, where flexibility is going to be part of the future workforce, it's part of the now workforce, by the way. The mindset that we need to think about is excellence anywhere. Excellence anywhere. And build your organization, build your philosophy, build your processes around we can have excellence anywhere. And when I talk to people about flexibility, it's not that you give every team member exactly what they want. What you give them is a voice. You give them influence so that they're having some impact in. So, you might go to hybrid schedules, especially for people in their first 5 years, being in the office 3 days a week, really there's science behind this, is the fastest way to grow. So it's about, okay, over the month, we want you to average 3 days a week but we also know that your team, your role, and what you're doing, there's flexibility in that, and what days you work from home and what days you work in the office. And I do believe this, and I talk about this in flexibility. Flexibility is unique to the individual, it's unique to their role, and it's unique to the team that they're on. You have to drive flexibility down to the smaller teams.
So I think that what you said there, I want to highlight something that you said because I think it's pretty important there. Is because I think a lot of people when they hear that term flexibility, they assume automatically that that means that you just give people kind of whatever they are looking for,
Right.
and I think you said very clearly there that that's not the case. It's giving people a voice and a say in kind of what they are doing, but it's not necessarily just letting them kind of do whatever they want. My grandmother would say, "Don't let the inmates run the asylum." I'm not sure if
Right.
that's an appropriate comment here or not, but but that's what she would have said. So it's not just kind of letting people do whatever they want. It is trying to give them some ability to have a say in what they do.
Exactly. What is the best win-win? But you got to understand what they want and what they desire before you can build that. And they've got to understand what the client commitment is. What is the commitment of their role? And this is another way to make it very clear. This is something we tell our team over and over again. Flexibility is a privilege. It's not a right. You earn flexibility by communication, commitment, and trust. You fulfilling your role, what you say you're going to do, and doing it when you say you're going to do it. So it's about results. And if we quit measuring time and measure results, you'll find out that people can get a lot of work done in a very focused period of time rather than worrying about making sure I stretch this out so that I have 8 chargeable hours.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's well said. Some of the other concepts in your book I think are pretty interesting. One of the ones that you talk about is you say you mentioned the ABCs to outstanding. Talk to me about that. What exactly are the ABCs to outstanding, and why it beneficial for younger professionals?
Well, it's beneficial for all of us, leaders, But I teach it to young professionals because it's the baseline for being outstanding. It's the baseline for reaching your full potential. And the ABCs are: A is attitude. Your attitude, Martin Seligman, a well-renowned American psychologist, has studied this for years. Attitude is a better indicator of your success than your IQ or your education. And yet we give our attitude away all the time. So attitude, maintaining control of your attitude, and it all starts with gratitude. If you're grateful, you're going to have a good attitude. And so I teach that, and you know, it's a skill. Being thankful is a skill. You learn to be thankful. It's not just an emotion. In other words, if you get into the discipline of writing down 3 things that you're thankful for every morning, I promise you, your day is going to start with more energy, even though it's an exercise to start with. And it can be as simple as coffee, sunshine, and the dog. But you cannot write that down and be thankful for it and not have a little more energy. The B is for better focus. We all are distracted. And in fact, all the studies show we distract ourselves more than other people distract us because of this phone, right? We pick that phone up. This thing, the world is going to stop if I don't return that text message or if I don't look at that email. And so better focus is all about putting yourself in periods of time where you really are focused. That's when you're best. That's when you're most creative. Understanding when your high energy times are. Because put your highest priority, like if your high energy is 10 a.m. to 12 noon, put your biggest project right then, cut all distractions out, and I promise you, you will do things 5 times as fast and it'll be a higher quality. And the C, and I've been teaching this for 20-something years, it's more prevalent, more relevant today than ever before. The C stands for constant learning. You have to be a lifelong learner to reach your full potential. Today, we're in an exponential world. What does that mean? That means learn, unlearn, and relearn. That's how fast it's going to move. Learn, unlearn, and relearn. So constant learning. Attitude, better focus, constant learning.
I think very appropriate too for the accounting profession. I think especially, we mentioned AI a little bit earlier on, which I think is, maybe the next hurdle that we as a profession are facing. So I think that that's interesting in itself. I think a lot of firms are really struggling to grow leaders. Because I think part of that is just not having the pipeline of people coming out of schools, wanting to be CPAs. And I think that to your point. I mean, I think part of this is a leadership problem. Are there any holistic approaches that are best for growing leaders fast? I mean, is there a way to any sort of approach that you would say like this is kind of the right way to sort of build leadership? Because I think firms honestly are hurting, and I think that they're looking for solutions.
Yeah, I think for growing leaders fast, there's probably 2 real key elements to it. One is feedback. Understanding feedback. And in fact, we realized we would never make good mentors, good performance advisors of everybody in the firm. So we train people on the book, Thanks for the Feedback. It's a Harvard book out of Harvard that two people put together. But it teaches you how important feedback is and how to sort it out. And, it's always going to have a curve to it. But there's some meat in there that really helps you reach your full potential. So the first thing is helping people understand feedback, because in our profession, we have a lot of people that are resistant to conflict or any kind of notion of conflict. So you don't get that feedback if you don't ask for it. So that's number one. Number two is full potential coaches. we actually hired full potential coaches, certified coaches, and inserted them into our organization, as well as we used external coaches. This is confidential relationships. This is not shared with mentors, mentees, or other leaders in the firm. It's your personal full potential coach to help you understand your feedback, help you understand how to navigate the organization, help you understand the questions you need to ask, and to help build your confidence. And so we, as a profession, we haven't invested in leadership. We again have promoted whoever walked in the room and had the most stars. And we
Yeah.
need to be promoting people that can give stars away.
So I just want to make sure that that I'm clear. Has your firm then you have outside coaches that have come in, or are they people within the organization that are kind of serving in this coaching role?
We have both.
Yeah, both.
And it's all the way through the partner level. About any year in those years when I was the managing partner from 2012 to 21, at least 25% of our partners had full potential coaches working on something for them. But we also hired internal, part of the Horn team, certified coaches. They work full time within Horn. Their job is to respond to Dave if Dave wants to have a counseling session, helping him understand how to set his goals, all of those things. Full certified, full potential coaches.
That I think is a an impressive commitment to leadership and to coaching. I think that that is probably more so I would say than a lot of other firms that are out there. I don't think that that's even really a point of debate. I mean, I think that there's I haven't heard of that necessarily at that level. I don't know in any other firm.
Yeah, well, it's certainly not common, but I have seen, thank goodness, I've seen some firms moving to that. Um,
Okay.
and there are more firms that are sending more of their stars to outside programs. There's more firms that are using external coaches. So it's coming about. It's just not at the level that we need based on, I think, the urgency around people that we have and the opportunities that we have. If we get the people thing right, oh my goodness, the abundance for our profession is incredible. CFOs are going to be leading organizations if they get the people part right. When they step into that CEO role, they are going to be effective.
I think it's interesting too because I think Horn was able to grow, kind of in the midst of kind of all of this professional change. I think whereas a lot of firms, I think, were kind of struggling. Do you think that kind of this coaching model, for lack of a better term, this coaching model, I think. Do you think that that was really kind of the key to the success there, or was there something else that you felt like you all were doing that maybe some other firms weren't?
I think there were two big drivers. And number one, and by far the biggest driver, was we made culture our number one priority. Culture was our number one priority, and we told the entire firm that. And then we reported on it transparently, boldly, transparently every year. What progress are we making? What are our initiatives? In our strategic plan, you had to go through a couple of pages before you got to something about growth or technical ability or things like that. In other words, people drove our strategy. So that was number one. Number two is that in 2011, we reorganized to set up focus groups so that we were very specialized and we stopped doing everything for everybody. One of the biggest, the hardest decision to make is what you're not going to do.
Right.
CFOs are faced with this every day in their companies, helping their company understand what they should be doing and not doing. The thing that cripples our profession in public accounting is the statement, well, it's profitable.
Yeah.
Well, oh my goodness. It's profitable, but it's not even going to be in existence in 2 years because of AI. So what are we doing to build sustainability in our firms based on where we're going? And so I just think that's a big challenge to be in focus groups and not do everything. Decide what you're not going to do. This is really important for small companies and small firms.
Well, I was just going to ask you that because I don't know that your smaller firms necessarily have the budget for an outside coach, or maybe they do. I'm not sure. But I think you pointed out some things though that I think maybe regardless of size, that firms might be able to do. I mean, because you pointed out two things. You said focus on culture, building the best culture possible, and then also figuring out what you're not going to do, kind of more of a focused approach. And certainly, I would think anyway that that would be something that a small firm could do as well as a big firm. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. And I again, I think it's whether you're in private practice or in public practice, because of the influence that we have, CFOs have more influence today than ever before across
Yeah.
all organizations. And so those two things alone, getting culture right and being the culture leader and people starting to follow you because of that, and then helping your organization understand, okay, not only is this what we should be doing, but here's where the puck is going, and this is why we're going to do this. Being anticipatory.
I think that that in and of itself, I think for some folks, I think that they really struggle with that. I wonder if you know, what advice would you have for someone who is maybe feeling kind of stuck in their company's culture? Because I think that to at least some of the practitioners that I talk to, maybe some of the practitioners that you talk to as well, they feel stuck. They don't feel like they can necessarily be an agent for change necessarily. But I think to your point, even if they're a CFO, I mean, even if they are close to the top level of the organization, they still feel stuck. What would you say to somebody like that who's just kind of feeling stuck in terms of their company's culture and kind of where their firm is headed?
Well, I think that every voice counts. And I will say this, no one person can change culture, but one person can start the ripple that changes culture. And when you start that conversation, when you start that ripple, there'll be another leader, there'll be another team member that says, hey, that's what I want too. And that's exactly the way it started in our organization is we had a compelling vision. We laid it out. People said, hey, that's who we want to be. We had early adopters and we got that momentum going. And when you get momentum going, that's where I call it magnetic energy happens. The magnetic energy is when people give discretionary effort. It's when people lean in because they have that strong sense of belonging and they can see we are building something bigger than ourselves here. This is the kind of company I want to be part of. And obviously, as a CFO, the smaller the company or the smaller the firm, you have that kind of ripple effect uh, pretty dramatically, actually.
How much of that ripple effect and how much of that sort of magnetism that you talk about, how much of that is something that can be created versus something that you just have to hire for? I mean, I would imagine that Horn, just like everybody else. I mean, you turn people away. I mean, at some point, how much of that is just good hiring? How much of that is just is us just creating a fantastic culture?
Well, it starts with leaders being vulnerable enough to change the legacy of how we've been managing. So
Okay.
you've got to have a group of leaders. It's got to start at the top where, hey, we want to be better. It's not how good your culture is. How good can it be? How
Right.
great can it be? Uh, we actually were kind of like a submarine with a screen door on it for 3 or 4 years. We were building greater culture. The energy was building, but we were still hiring in the wrong people. Sometimes more of them were wanting to come on board. By the way, because of that magnetic energy,
Right.
we had more cheerleaders who were saying, "Hey, come to work on our team," and we were actually probably over in 2017 or 18 before we went to a very stringent motivation based interviewing process.
Talk about that if you don't mind. What does that mean? What is interview process? Motivation interview process? Motivation
Motivation
based?
based interviewing. I believe that's actually the name of the book. I think it's one of the things that Disney used to um, qualify people, but it's really the what it gets down to is a person internally motivated. In other words, if it's an obstacle or opportunity, are they going to go get results? Are they externally motivated where they're always going to have an excuse or reason why they couldn't achieve their full potential?
Okay.
It's
Okay.
very open based questions. It's you got to be trained and certified. But basically, what we got is we probably have 200 certified people now, and you sit through an interview with two people which grade you, and if you pass that motivation based interview, and then you get to interview with Dave, who may have the opening on the team.
Okay. Okay. So is it? I mean, does that come into because a lot of times as we're talking about kind of attracting talent, a lot of times the focus is not on internal motivation. I mean, a lot of times it's trying to offer the best benefits or offer the best salary. And so are we maybe going about attracting talent in kind of the wrong way when we do that? I mean, um, I think especially right now, I mean, there's a shortage of talent. So, so my inclination is I mean, frankly, if I have the budget, I'm going to try to price them high so that I get the person.
Yeah, I mean we're in as a profession overall, we're a little bit in a ditch. So there's a lot of desperation going on. The mirror test, you know,
Yeah.
if you can
Yeah.
breathe on the mirror, I'm gonna figure out what compensation you need and get you on the team.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a catch 22 thing, but you've got to stop long enough to peel the onion back and understand where your culture stinks and go to work on it, because all you're going to do is you're going to be a screen door on the submarine. You're going to sink over and over again because you've got too many internal problems. People are coming in and leaving right and left.
And I think that's, to your point. I mean, if we're going to stop this, I mean, I think, ultimately we need to create better culture. I mean, I think more than anything else, we got to make our places, somewhere where people want to work before we're necessarily, necessarily going to have people banging on our door wanting to work for us. So part of it is us, creating a culture that's appealing.
We got to create a better story, and we got to tell that story.
And I think that's absolutely true. So speaking of kind of telling the story here. So if folks would like to get a copy of your book, how would they be able to do that?
Well, the book is out in all the online bookstores: Amazon, Books a Million, Google Books. It's audio version, Kindle, and so I mean it's out there. It's in some of the retail stores, books and Barnes and Noble, and some of those. And then if you want to get in touch with me, you can get in touch with me at joey@joeyhavens.com, and there's information on the book there also.
Well, I think that's a great place to start. Joey Havens, folks, he does a great job of just laying out a lot of these things that that I think are so key to culture and for helping us just build better companies and companies that are going to be sustainable over the long run. I mean, my goodness, if we don't build a good culture, I mean, what happens to our firms, right? So I think that is an important piece. So. Joey, thank you so much for your insights. Thank you for your knowledge, and just thank you for your willingness to share.
Dave, thank you so much, and I just leave you with these words: be intentional and be bold.
Be intentional and be bold, folks. So thank you so much for joining us this week, and we'll see you on the next episode of Accountable.
Thanks for listening to Accountable. Be sure to subscribe for more interviews and insights from today's business leaders.